Rams at Seahawks. The Rams went up to Seattle, and this game had a bit more offensive firepower or fireworks than the earlier game in the day, that being the AFC Championship game. The Rams lose 27-31, but they trade punches with the Seahawks all game long. The receiver display was great in this game. JSN versus Puka, making great catches back and back, getting open almost at will. Matthew Stafford and Sam Darnold, of all people, going back and forth, making good throws. The real difference in this game, and as well documented, is the Rams muffing that punt, and then one play later, the Seahawks throw a touchdown pass, and that just kind of is the difference in this game. I mean, the Rams had 479 yards to the Seahawks 396. They moved the ball at will, but it's just hard to overcome in an offensive shootout a swing play like that. But y'all's thoughts on this game? What do y'all see? Stats from it, implications, you name it.
Well, I mean, the muffed punt is obviously a big deal, but the Rams had their own version of that, and the Tariq Woolen taunting penalty that then was turned into, now I'll get to their credit, a longer touchdown, but also at the same time they went right at Tariq Woolen after the emotional letdown of giving up a free first down when it was 4th and 12, and Puka scores a touchdown. So I do think
that's a good point.
The Rams had their own version of that, and so I do think both of those plays ended up being a little bit of a wash. If we were to talk about the reasons the Rams lost this game, is because of different things. One of them being, a failure to score points in the first half and convert into touchdowns. Stafford had not been sacked by the Seattle Seahawks since 2023, and he was sacked once on 3rd and 10 in the first half, which was caused. It forced a field goal. It kept them off the field, or kept them from scoring a touchdown. Which those 4 points ends up being the difference in the game. It ends up being the difference of the final score between the two teams, 27-31, 4 points. Another reason I felt like the Rams lost was Sam Darnold was absolutely incredible. And, Stafford versus Darnold is a great comparison. And here it is. Completion percentage, Darnold was 69%. Stafford was 63%. Darnold threw for 346 and Stafford threw for 374. They both threw for essentially 10 yards per pass. They both threw 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and their 2 passer ratings were 127.8 for Darnold, 127.6 for Stafford.
Crazy.
That is combined the highest passer rating in NFL history since 2021, which was the 13 seconds game between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game. So they were incredible against each other, but there's a key difference. Sam Darnold versus Matthew Stafford on 3rd down in this game. Sam Darnold was 6 for 9 for 103 and 6 first downs on all 6 completions. Stafford on 3rd down in this game, 0 for 7, 0 yards, 0 first downs. Massive difference in the game. And look, I know Stafford cooked Seattle and cooked that number 1 defense, that number 1 points per game defense, but that is a huge up towards Seattle, forcing Stafford to be 0 for 7 on 3rd down, throwing the football. And then the other one is at the end of the game, and I felt like it was Sean McVay and the way that he managed the game. There were decisions, he's been criticized for decisions that he's made. He's had terrible special teams pretty much his entire tenure there with the Los Angeles Rams. You think of, games that they've lost this year because of special teams. You think of the San Francisco game, Thursday Night Football, that I bring up every time I talk about the Rams for whatever reason, but also switching kickers during this game. You think of this punt return not during this game, but during the season, the punt return touchdown for Rashid Shaheed in the Thursday night game, and then this one, it's the muff punt. But at the end of the game, I want to give the full credit to Seattle's defense because they stopped the Rams. It's one thing in a shootout we love the shootouts because there's so many points. It's electric. We think it's the best version of football. It's why our favorite games of the year are always the shootouts.
Yeah.
It's the Ravens Bills week 1. It's for me Tampa Bay and Seattle in week 3. For others, it's Thursday night football between Seattle and Los Angeles. Other people might end up just being this game. But in shootouts, I think, it's very easy to go and point at the defense and say, you guys failed us today. But the Rams through 3 games against the Seahawks, Puka Nacua had 28 catches on 38 targets for 465 yards and 3 touchdowns. Devontae Adams this year led the league with total touchdowns, receiving touchdowns, and total touchdowns inside the 5 with 14 of them. And yet, after all of that, on 3rd and 4th down, the final 2 passes of the Rams season on 3rd and goal from the 7 and 4th and goal from the 7 went to Keonta Mugfield and Terrence Ferguson. McVay could not scheme up a play to get Puka Nacua or Devontae open because they were doubled and tripled teamed. The 4th down play, the Seahawks dropped 9 guys in coverage because Stafford doesn't run. And that is a full credit to Mike McDonald and that Seahawks defense. It's cliche to say, make someone else beat you. It's more often successful than not when you actually do it.
Yeah.
And they did it in those final 2 plays. Puka cooks them in this game, and Devontae has his touchdown, and Stafford is electric. But the final 2 passes of the Rams season go to Keonta Mugfield and Terrence Ferguson. Technically there's 3 passes in their little scurry to try to score, but the 2 biggest passes go to those 2 guys instead of Puka Nacua or Devontae Adams. That's what a great defense can do. They'll just step up in a huge moment and make a really, really critical play. And so I do think they deserve a ton of credit. And I felt like those are the reasons the Rams lost this game. That doesn't even highlight what Sam Darnold did, but what are your thoughts on winners, losers?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, the 1 for 8 3rd down is very glaring to look at it. I wonder how many teams in NFL history have, gone for over 450 yards and only converted like 1 3rd down. The list can't be very big. So yeah, props to Seattle for getting off the field. I mean, I just came from a season where I watched A&M, almost do the same thing in terms of like, okay, maybe, they're getting the ball moved on them a little bit, but you give them 1 play, like you mess up 1 play and they're basically off the field because they're going to take full advantage of it. They may get a sack or, you just like missed the throw on 2nd down, so now it's 2nd and 7. We're not going to give you 7 yards. So I agree. Shout out to Seattle for that. It is kind of weird just like moving forward. How much longer does Stafford have is kind of where I'm at, and it's been a question. McVay felt very insulted. Someone asked him in the presser, I believe, basically like, will Stafford be back next year? And he was like, basically like, well, duh, why wouldn't he be? But he's getting older, and there's questions to be had there. So in terms of talking about the Patriots or the Broncos, in terms of getting back, there's definitely no guarantee the Rams, for example, can get back because they feel more on the back end of their window than the front end, like the AFC teams.
Well, I will say this: other than quarterback, they're still in the front end.
This is true, but quarterback's the most important position.
It is. So. But if they can get Malik Willis and no, I'm kidding. If they can put a plan in place to kind of have this quarterback situation handled going forward, whether that's drafting a guy and you get to let him sit behind Stafford for a year, or if Stafford does leave, you go out and you try and get an Aaron Rodgers or somebody with experience. I'm not a big Kyler Murray guy, but some people still like him. If you can, the team is really good around Matthew Stafford. So if you can find, if you can find a Sam Darnold, right, someone who had a good year at Minnesota, but kind of benefited from a great team around him, the Rams have the kind of team that can elevate a quarterback. You don't have to go find a quarterback who's going to elevate the team around him. Now Stafford does that, but I think the Rams have a good enough team that they could be back in Super Bowl contention for several years going forward, even if Stafford were to retire, if they can find a guy who can just take advantage of the weapons around him and the scheme around him. On Sam Darnold, go ahead, JP.
I was going to say one quick thing is we'll probably get to that on Thursday when we do their primer, more than likely. But the Rams have 2 first-round picks this year because they have the Atlanta Falcons pick. They pick at 13, and so they could steal Ty Simpson right there, or they could pick a quarterback at 29. So it's definitely an option for them in 2 first-round picks this year to maybe draft the quarterback of the future, even though the class isn't that great.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely in a lot better of a position than other teams in terms of potentially replacing a quarterback. And also, for all we know, Stafford comes back next year, has another year just like this, and that conversation gets pushed yet another year, right? But it's just far from a sure thing.
I'll go ahead and say it because I really love it, and I don't want to talk too much about the draft. What I had them do, I had them go wide receiver at 13 to maximize Matthew Stafford's potential final year, because Devontae Adams is in his early 30s, and so you want to give him as many weapons as possible to succeed. And then
Devontae's a free agent too.
Okay,
Good
so
point.
if you can, maybe you convince him to come back for another run, or if not, you bring in a Jordan Tyson or a
Mekhi Lemon
or something like that to kind of backfill behind Puka Nacua and really maximize Matthew Stafford. And then with your pick, I had them take Taylon Green. This was like halfway through the college football season, which I just love his athletic traits and his abilities, and I kind of want to tell myself that if he sits behind Matthew Stafford for a season, he'll just figure out all the mental stuff and like play like Matthew Stafford, but with Anthony Richards' physical traits, or at least some of Anthony Richardson's physical traits. But we'll talk about more of that in the draft. I want to talk about Sam Darnold because I saw a tweet that I think I'm kind of guilty of, or was kind of guilty of, talking. Well, I reopened the Twitter app and it is gone now.
Classic.
But let's go. It is back. Darnold completed. This is from the K Adams show, Up and Adams, whatever. It can't be just JSN in the pass game. There's got to be somebody else. And that was a quote from some analyst that I'm not going to.
Sims.
Thank you. I wasn't going to. Chris Sims. I wasn't going to dox him because it was a take that like
he deserves to be doxed.
Yeah. Well, it was. I'm going to confess that it was the kind of take that, because of how dominant JSN has been, and because of how he started the season with like it was a 40 or a 60% target percentage, like just not a ball hog because he was able to dominate with that kind of target, but like he was Darnold's primary weapon by a huge margin. That's kind of how it's felt a lot this season, because JSN was the best wide receiver in the NFL this year, and because Darnold has not been this elite ball distributor throughout his career. That's an easy narrative to fall prey to. But the truth is that Darnold completed 25 passes to 7 different receivers, including touchdowns to Kupp and Bobo. And so that's just something I wanted to, give credit to him for his play. Because that's a fantastic, ball distribution. And, maybe that's in part due to the Rams attempting to cover JSN and to take that target away, which they were not able to do in its entirety. But just a really good game from Darnold, not just doing the chuck it up to the one guy over and over again and let him go make plays, but to really work through the offense and run that offense efficiently and effectively to create plays outside of JSN.
I think it's a great point. I also think Clint Kubiak deserves a lot of credit for that as well, for scheming guys up. I mean, George Halani has 3 catches for 27 yards at running, out of the backfield at running back. Like, you don't have Charbonnet. You just bounce back, find someone else to kind of plug and play, fill some voids. Clint Kubiak has done a fantastic job. Him and Darnold have really paired well. Darnold deserves a ton of credit, but I just wanted to shout out Kubiak for that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Darnold was absolutely incredible. Obviously, it's the best. It's the best game of his career given the moment. It's not the best statistical. He had 2 games last year with the Vikings late in the season against Green Bay and the Atlanta Falcons, where he threw for more yards. He completed the same amount of passes or more passes and threw for more or the same amount of touchdowns. And so it's not necessarily his best game statistically, but it's by far the best game of his career. And given the 3, the 3 games that we point to prior to this game that we think of like playoff game, literally, or playoff adjacent, in the 2 number 1 overall seed games the last 2 years on the road, both of those games. He has been, bad in all of those games. Against Detroit, he was 18 for 41 for 166. That's a 44% completion percentage. And against the Los Angeles Rams, he's 25 for 40 for 245, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and 1 fumble. And then in the final game against San Francisco, he doesn't reach 200 yards, but he's efficient, 20 for 26. To then say that, okay, you're going to come into, you go from a week where you complete just 12 passes, and then you go 25 for 36, 346, 3 touchdowns. And like I said earlier, 6 for 9 for 103 and 6 first downs. That is incredible. And a huge, huge statement, which I thought was the biggest statement of all, was Seattle at the end of that game, they're mismanaging the clock, like fully, in my opinion. They weren't draining it down to 0 seconds. They weren't trying to, minimize the amount of time Stafford was going to get in his chance.
Yep.
They had incompletions. They had 2 really bad carries that took them out of field goal range, 2 drives, or the drive prior to the turnover on downs for the Rams. And they were throwing it in really crazy spots. And no real team throws it in those spots. But it spoke to the confidence that they had in Sam Darnold in that moment. And with the way that he had been playing throughout the game, to throw the ball multiple times in the fourth quarter with the lead in critical moments, and he delivered. He picks up first downs. He finds guys down the field. He doesn't put the ball in harm's way at really any point in this game. It speaks unbelievable volumes to the confidence that they had, and for him to bottle up everything in his career and then just delete it and come out and play his brand of football. It is one of the, obviously, everybody's going to talk about it. It's one of the greater stories we've seen in this league's history. It is, of the guys that have rebirthed their career. You think of Geno Smith, 2 great years in Seattle, 1 playoff game as a 7 seed. Baker Mayfield, with his resurgence in Tampa Bay, he's won just 1 playoff game. Sam Darnold now is in a Super Bowl. And he's in the Super Bowl because of his play. It's not because of their elite defense in this game that they win. It's because he played excellent. He hits Rashid Shaheed deep down the field. He finds JSN in all the spots. He throws the no-look touchdown to he throws the no-look completion to JSN, which was the one-headed catch by JSN, where he catches it and purposefully holds the ball out instead of bringing it to his chest so that the DB doesn't hit it out. Ridiculous play by JSN. They're going to the Super Bowl because of his play. And I wonder, now this is the third example and the full example of some of these quarterbacks that were drafted highly, if they're put in the right spot, their talent's there. And they can find, that kind of resurgence in their career. And you think of guys like a really trendy one is going to be Mac Jones. But I even think of what if Trey Lance got the chance to start somewhere this year? We don't expect that from
bring back
Tua,
Josh Rosen.
What about Josh Rosen come back from being a banker? Kyler Murray as a potential down the road. It is.
I mean, we're having genuine conversations like that about Malik Willis.
Yeah. Sometimes all it takes is some time and the right situation. I mean, I will say, Jets fans maybe aren't too upset about the outcome. I mean, I saw one today say, as long as Sam Darnold beats the Patriots in the Super Bowl, it was a worthwhile pick for the Jets.
I did see that too.
I think part of that is going to be great, and I guarantee we're going to see if now Mac Jones is under contract with San Francisco, but maybe he's traded. But you have a guy like Malik Willis this offseason that's going to get a high deal. The Falcons want to give him 3 years, $60 million. Diabolical, but that's besides the point. Yes, these examples have worked, But all three of these examples have worked because all three of those quarterbacks have had tremendous seasons out of their own play, and they've made critical plays. Sam Darnold's won, it is now 31 games over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield is goated because he makes all these critical plays and he has these clutch drives. Geno Smith, prior to the season, was second in the NFL in game-winning drives and had 2 pretty solid years in Seattle. Those worked because the quarterback, refound their confidence, and you have Geno saying, "I didn't write back," and Baker is, confident as always, but it felt like he got back to his Oklahoma days. And now Darnold is clearly feeling confident with the way that he played in that NFC Championship game. It's a potential warning to the people that are like, okay, let's just get Malik Willis, and that'll be what happens for us. It's not guaranteed. It's definitely, to go back on our first conversation today, there needs to be more data to see if it's truly the trend. But it is something to say that it is very possible that something like that could happen with a quarterback that was drafted highly and kind of fizzled out in their first 4 years with their first franchise.
Yeah. I mean, I was just looking back through draft history because it's so interesting. Anthony Richardson, I feel like, is going to be one that's going to get – I said this in our Colts preview because there are a lot of people in the comments, I think, talking about it. And I was like, he's going to get opportunities probably the next 4 to 5 years. He's not going to be out of the NFL for several years just because he's just going to keep getting chances, whether that's as second or third string, on a roster. But he's going to get opportunities, I think, for a while.
I don't know, man. We'll see.
Yeah.
He can't stay healthy for one thing.
Yeah.
You got guys like Kellen Mond and Tommy Stevens.
Y'all see Kellen Mond's LinkedIn post from this week?
I did not.
It was basically talking about how awful like the vibes were there when he first got drafted.
Oh, I did see that. I saw
because
like
the head coach didn't want him, and apparently the head coach and GM weren't talking, which I'm blanking on Zimmer or something like that. Mike Zimmer.
Yeah, Mike Zimmer.
Yeah, that was just horrible, and it made him not want to play football.
Yeah.
So
tough.
His favorite part of the day was how long the commute was, basically.
That's so sad.
It's really sad. Aggie legend Kellen Mond, gig 'em. Anything else on this game? Should we move on?
Mm-mm. Exciting matchup. I wanted to make a point about like, wow, no matter who won this game, it was going to be a rematch of a recent Super Bowl, semi-recent, I guess. But then I realized that it's the Patriots, and so there's a lot of opportunities for rematches of recent Super Bowls. And by recent, I mean like my memory. I'm 23, so like in the last probably 15 years, a lot of different outcomes that give us rematches. So a lot less of a talking point than I initially thought.
They went to 9 of them, and they played 7 different teams. So 7 of the 15 available in the NFC.
16 available in the NFC.
16. Sorry, 7 of the 16, almost half.